Hey man, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Absolutely.
So let's begin our journey into your work by asking this. 5 years ago, the pandemic changed so many things about our lives, business, personal, all over the place. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you do things now in 2025?
Yeah, that was it's certainly an epic time period. I've said lately that it was the best pandemic I've ever been through. I don't know what it's like to go through a pandemic, but and though, there are obviously scary things, and there was a lot of, you know, personal things that happened to people that I look around, my friends and family, that was really sad and scary. But um, the business was amazing. One on our event that we put on once a month, it went digital, and the guests showed up in abundance. People were looking for more content, so viewership went up. People were looking to be on more things, and then on the agency side of things, we have a lot of clients that are all over the country, and normally we'd be traveling. So like, a client in Chicago, it would take a day to go do a presentation and get feedback, and then come back. And that flipped. All of a sudden it was, you're going through the presentation on Zoom, you go back to work, and then a couple of days you're presenting again. And it amplified the speed by which we do things, for sure. I
Yeah.
think, when that was going on and you watched these major corporations, like retailers moving to buying online and ordering online and picking up outside of their stores, and how they moved to that so quickly, and all these things that people were moving on. Part of that behavior was lost. I think, kind of it atrophied, between now and the pandemic. But as much as we could possibly keep of that ability to be agile and to move fast, we kept it, because we noticed it was a very healthy thing for our business. So
It's
yeah,
a,
I was.
it's amazing the amount of overhead the companies save by not having to fly to Chicago, like you said.
Yeah,
All the expense between hotels and travel and airline, like all of that was just literally done by clicking on an account on Zoom and going for it.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
No, that the cost of that went down. I also think, though, the negative side of it, we noticed that any new clients that came about were people that we had already previously met in some other occasion. If we met them and only met them on Zoom, it was unlikely they become a client.
oh, interesting.
It it was a pattern that showed up pretty quickly, and we're like, well, this is not healthy at all. And so it became important to be out there and connect with people, as the contrasting behavior coming out of that. That isn't as efficient, but it definitely helps in building relationships, and our business is definitely a relationship business. So we needed to be in front of people, shaking hands, seeing the whites of eyes, smiling and connecting, human to human kind of way. So
I guess the metaphor would be you're not going to marry somebody or get into a relationship purely over Zoom. You literally have, right? You literally
right.
have to meet up. You have to do it the old-fashioned way.
It would be very awkward.
It would be very strange.
Very strange.
I think the thing that the most damage that was done was the younger generations just kind of slipped through this whole idea of how to socialize. It's kind of a weird thing, I think, even now for them to kind of be
Yeah.
around other human beings because they're so used to being on their screens,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, both of our kids worked at grocery stores, either bagging or checkout, which kind of forces you to be social,
Yeah.
and social with like a general population crowd. And I found that was really important for our kids during that time period, because, yeah, I mean, I saw it with some of our employees, the younger ones, didn't get to connect, and it was disappointing to me to see that they didn't get to, connect with the leaders in the company and be able to spend time in what is like, almost the invisible mentorship thing, where it's not, they're just observing how you behave in meetings and how the flow of the conversation goes when you're in a physical meeting together, which doesn't happen in this Zoom environment. That, all you're observing is this, rectangle, and it's not as valuable as the full person, from an observation perspective.
When
Yeah.
I was in high school, I had a job at a grocery store. I was in the produce department, which was like a primo place to be. But it was that idea. You really did have to force yourself to get to that point where you talk to people and interacted. And I mean, everybody wanted to know what something tasted like and just those things. I mean, sacking groceries and all that. It's really actually a good environment to figure things out socially, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. My son figured out that he could mention when he was carrying groceries out, you weren't supposed to ask for tips. That was prohibited. But if you got a tip, it was okay to take the tip. And so he noticed that if he would ask about or make a comment about the university that was on the bumper sticker of someone's car,
Yeah.
that it would increase his odds of getting a tip of significant proportion. So he he started to hack the system of getting tips and talk about it all the time. It was very cute.
Well,
Yeah.
with women, mention the hairdo or the shoes, and you might even get more.
Dangerous.
Yeah. So let's get into the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids, 12 years old. You're in a school, it's career day, and the kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
That is a good question. I love that. Um, when you go into your art class, kids, we are the ones that draw. So you might wonder, like, what does this art class do? What could I do if I graduate from high school and all I've gotten really interested in, or in from college, is in art? We translate written language into visual language, and we essentially turn things into visuals. And this is a little bit complex for that age group, but I think they can get it. We consume things visually first, and then we learn to read. As you've all learned to read here in grade school, that's something that's not natural as a human behavior. It has to be taught, and so, but consuming and judging visual language first before you read is something that's natural. And so we do that stuff that makes things look appealing, make things something something wants to buy, wants to bring into their life, wants to be entertained by, those types of things. That's what we do. It comes in the form of packages that you might see on the grocery shelf, comes in the form of logos that you might see on a screen or a website that you browse or an app that you use. It's that kind of stuff that it shows up as. So that's what we do pretty much every day. So we get to draw every day,
Yeah.
or at least, what's, what referred to as, a creative exercise. We get to do that all day long.
It's absolutely essential though, because you could have one of the best products in the world, but if you don't have any level of presenting that in a visual way, I mean, growing up in the 80s, there was so many things that was just eye candy. You just wanted it because it just lured you in, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's huge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Design has had a number of great eras. The mid-century, which people refer now as like mid-century modern, car design, furniture design. It was a period in time in which we really design started to gain more recognition as a thing. And now, in the past probably 20 years, it's had another revival. Bringing back design and thinking about design, bring it into the boardroom, bring it into the C-suite, because it's a central part of the business, right? Apple has done a lot to help that. Target, P&G, a lot of others have helped to raise the recognition of it and the importance of it. But yeah, it is. It's important because if all you're talking is function around your product, this is the task it does. This is how it functions. There's no emotion in that. There's no emotional reward. Design and the language around it creates an emotional connection to something.
So what did you want to be at 12 years old? What was your dream job?
Oh goodness, I'm not entirely sure. It wasn't. I know it wasn't business, though that did come in early. Probably, I did want to do business when I entered college because I'd seen what my dad did, and he was in business, so he was an engineer. Um, I would have probably wanted to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
I would have probably, gone out west and wrangled horses until that was an expired career option. I spent a lot of time on horses as a child, and it felt natural for me to be out there doing something in that form, you know.
Yeah, cowboy astronaut. That's that when you're a kid, that's what you do. You're just shooting for the
Yeah,
stars. Yeah.
right, right.
You know? So, what were the foundational elements that were ultimately woven into you early on that made you get into business, that made you get into design and visually getting people to get products? What do you think happened early on that made you pick this career and feel like it's your place?
There's a couple of big factors. One, I went to University of St. Thomas and it had a business program that was pretty solid, and I got interested in business pretty early and specifically marketing. I was curious about marketing because it's the intersection between psychology, which I really appreciated and enjoyed, and economics. It is that really applied versions of each of those. And it was very intriguing to me. It's where, that interaction, that important economic interaction happens is in marketing. Creating a marketplace for something is essentially what marketing is. And so I thought that was a very intriguing thing early on. And then my father was an entrepreneur. My mom was a social entrepreneur. She started nonprofits. And so I just had a very big fascination with being an entrepreneur at some point in time. And my dad, he did the little nudge thing, every once in a while. Like, you should consider doing this. You should consider doing this. And then when I actually said I'm going to go do this, his first statement was the exact opposite of what he'd been telling me the entire time, which was, a third of all businesses fail. And a third of them don't look like what they originally intended in like a year. And then a third are successful. That was a common stat at the time. He definitely nudged me in the right direction, but then leveled me off when I got excited about or wanted to go out and do my own thing in this form. I think I was, though my parents were very heavy influentials in the becoming an entrepreneur in some form. So
So if you look back on your career arc, who was that inspiration? Who were those heroes that have allowed you to evolve into where you're at today?
I look to it's interesting. I struggle with heroism because of you identify people and like Steve Jobs, it can easily be an answer to that. But then if you watch and read watch the movies about him and read books about what he did, I mean, there was a lot of crying and swearing and going on walks. And I like to take out the behaviors of the thing out of that things out of what they did to help improve myself and be a better person, a better boss, a better owner, a better partner to our clients. So doing walking meetings, I think that's a really fascinating idea and a thing that I need to do more of. But other than my dad and my mom being certainly heroes in my life, the firm that I came from, which was Yamamoto Moss, Hideki Yamamoto and Miranda Moss, they were not only a balance of East and West, but also just a balance of each other and how they balance each other off in different forms. And I found that to be very intriguing. And they were both definitely heroes. And I could be close enough to them that I could see their flaws, respect their flaws, and also see that the things that they were most graceful about and capable of as founders. There were things like when we left to start our own firm, we were, complaining about like, why do they do this? Why do they do that? What do they do these types of things? And then you get out and start your thing. You're like, oh, I see why they did those things, right? It's a shift that happens. Even if you give off all kinds of signals of being a potential owner of a business. Once you make that switch, you have to see things differently. It's a dramatically different way to see the world, to be on the side of ownership. So
Yeah. So in your life, when you look at campaigns and the way people package and present things, what's one of the most stunning, effective campaigns that maybe has been fuel for you in your approach?
ooh, that's interesting. I see it as um, eras inside of brands. Right? If you see like 5 or 10 year eras of when they had times in which they were making really good decisions um, relative to everything else, because it really brands are built with experiences, right? And the perfect example of that would be Starbucks way back when, right? They were built as a brand based on an experience that was designed so very precisely to get you there to become that third spot in your day, and to be a place where you could be loyal to without a loyalty program at all, right? And it had a wonderful era. Now they're in a tougher era, and they're in a tougher era for reasons that are really challenging. For instance, they really had to invent and create an app, an ordering app where you could, order your coffee ahead of time. But what that did is it changed the relationship between me and the barista.
Yeah.
It kind of diminished the heroism of the barista's role and that relationship they have with their customers, and just the nobility of the role itself of being a barista. I mean, it's a cool word to, like, you're a barista.
Yeah.
You're not a burger flipper. You know what I mean? You're a
Yeah.
barista.
Yep.
But that kind of diminished it by just having, pushing buttons and pushing cups. And so it's a different era now, more challenging era for them. I look at eras in the form of Apple, right? They had the era between jobs, right? When he wasn't there, it was a tough era for them, right? And then he came back, and this is a funny little story. We were at a client meeting for a Silicon Valley technology called Netgear. And the CEO at the time, if we got done with our big presentation, we said, this is what you should do with the brand and where you should go with the experience. And we'd used Apple as an example. And this is Steve Jobs had just come back like 2 months before, right? And so they had nothing had shown up yet. No results, no indication of where they were going. And the CEO looked over at me and he said, I don't know why you'd use Apple as an example. They are irrelevant in this town. They are practically bankrupt.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, that was hard for me because I'm like, I love Apple. I'm a fan of Apple. We use Apple in our products, right?
Yeah.
We've been loyal all the way through that. And so it was like, oh, that's really disappointing to hear that is the culture of Silicon Valley right now, that they are that irrelevant. And then we are here now in our day. And I've not been back in touch with that CEO. I should, just to find out how he's doing,
Yeah.
relative to Apple
Yeah.
at some point, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I remember that cusp period of when he came back and we like right before the phones and everything that he was doing. And I was running a couple computer labs for the YMCA and we got a grant and we got all of those Macs, the all-in-ones. And I remember we
yeah,
had gateways in there, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do with these Macs? No one's going to know the language. No one's going to understand the OS. No one even really knows what these are other than the 84 ad and all of that lore that was built up of a computer
yeah,
that no one really used because it was more graphic design oriented. But that was right before it happened. And I
yeah, yeah,
remember really the kids embracing that because it was more visual. There were things that
yeah.
made more sense because I didn't realize till later on as a tech guy myself that Windows was made for accountants. Apple was made for the end user,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know,
It was made
so
for human beings. It was made for
yeah,
people. It made for, not that accountants aren't people, but
right.
it was made more to be more intuitive,
Uh-huh.
natural and intuitive. And I mean, it is across the board. It's always been a great example of design because it considers the individual, the human, the user in that equation, and designs for them just naturally. It wasn't like they had to invent some form of design, some
Sure.
interesting language of design. They just designed for people,
Yep.
right? I mean, that was the basic brilliance of Steve Jobs. He's like, I want this to be for human beings,
Uh-huh.
right? I don't want this to be this, because technology has its barriers, its intimidations, its acronyms, its own language, its own structures that make it really intimidating for any normal human being, and certainly for younger, perhaps, and then much older. But he just, and that philosophy of making it more consumable, it changed the direction of the industry, if you think about it,
Yep.
right?
Yep. It really
Everyone had to follow. The ripple was like, oh, okay, we got to get better at, Microsoft got better at interface design. They got better at design as a whole. All these other brands coming out now, design is a thing they've got to think about,
yeah.
as an important part of the equation. So,
And Steve was that top down guy. I remember I just listened to the audiobook of Bill Gates from the beginning. It was called Source Code. And he talked about the first time he saw Steve Jobs at a job fair. And Bill's coming in with a couple pals, and they're all like ragtag, kind of in the 70s, just kind of like playing the part. And all of a sudden he looks over and there's a guy in a three-piece suit that has a projection when there's no real like projectors going on. There's a huge Apple prototype up there. And he's like, who is this guy? Like everything about him from the word go was about, I'm the guy. I'm going to walk in the room and you're going to pay attention. And that's what you do with Apple. When you see it, you're like, what is that? Because it's sleek. It has a great design. Even the packaging. I mean, the way they
yeah,
package everything and wrap it up and the way
I
even the paper
know.
is on there, it's a whole methodology.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. And it's so many people, so many brands and companies try to pick up on it by picking up on the aesthetic,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, well, we're going to do this. We're going to use white. We're going to, do things that are Apple-esque, but they're not going to be Apple
Hmm.
because they really go to the infinite detail and such a level of detail that most people are like, I can't possibly afford that. But what they don't realize is it's really affording the time and the energy and the thought process to go deep on it
Yeah.
and to be obsessive about these types of things. And it takes time. It isn't something that's an overnight success, which I don't think a lot of things are anyway,
Right.
but people are hoping and aspiring that they're going to have that overnight success. And so they cut corners and they don't really adopt the full the full thinking that comes with really, really good design.
The first laptop I got of Apple was in '08, and I still have it. It still opens up and it's still functional. So when you do spread that investment up front
Wow.
out, and all of
Yeah.
their support is in America. It's
Yeah.
all, there's so many things about it if you really break it down that makes so much more sense. Because if you get something that wears out and breaks, like Dells are just anymore with the way they make their motherboards, they just die within like a couple years.
Oof.
But
Yeah.
to have something that lasted since '08, well, we're going on 18, 17, 18 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is. Also crazy that '08 is that many years ago.
Oh my
That is a,
God. Yeah,
don't even.
we're all getting old, man.
Oh,
I know.
that is.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So if you got a phone call from one entrepreneur on the planet when we get off this call, who would you love to hang out with for a little bit? Pick their brain, someone that might help you on your journey.
Oh, it's easy. Elon Musk,
Yeah.
and hands down. Yeah, I mean, we put on our series because I want to be able to see through the lens of other people and what they're seeing every day. I firmly believe that the future's already here, just not widely distributed. He's seeing the future.
Yeah.
Just like Jobs is seeing the future. Certain people, entrepreneurs that are not only like seeing it in a physical form, like here's a thing that we're going to launch, right, but also just a vision for like this could happen. And you're like, oh, we're going to go to Mars. You're like, okay, really? Still that you're like, no, that's not really going to happen. I mean, that's a great movie, but it's not
Right.
really. Like when my kids have grandkids maybe, but yeah, but it like his kind of energy and vision for it. It would just be a fascinating conversation to have dinner with him.
Yeah.
Would be absolutely amazing. So I
Yeah.
had literally, I have a Tesla, and for a while they give you the self-driving every once in a while for a month, and then you're supposed to give recordings back on how it worked every time you stop it, and so it'll record your voice as you give feedback in the car. And my message that I give on feedback is to Elon Musk. I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, dude, this is great. I'd like you to possibly have dinner with me, because we should talk about this.
Sure.
That's my message. Because I'm thinking they're picking up the recordings, and he might even see those
That's
recordings, and
it.
it'd be really funny, right? It comes
Huh?
back, and he's like, this guy keeps asking for dinner or a lunch with Elon Musk. Let's just see what happens.
I'm gonna do it. Let's do it.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I remember years ago, a friend of mine, as kind of a gag, but it was serious, got me this map and this deed to property on the moon. And the way this happened was there was a guy named Dennis Hope, and he literally sent a fax to the White House every single day to the Nixon administration. Can I own all of these properties, the celestial bodies in outer space? And they finally, just to get him off the back, said, go ahead. So he kind of set up this company, and he sent out, like, you could buy property on all the planets. And you would get a deed and you would get this whole thing. And it's just that idea. Like, if you just keep putting it out there, one way
yeah.
or another, there's a chance that it's going to come through.
So does he still have all the property? I mean, someone's going to land there someday, and they're going to be like, "Oh man, we can't go there because
I know.
Bob owns that section. What are
Yeah.
we going to?"
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
I don't.
Starbucks has that property there, or Mrs. Jones owns
Right.
this. I can't do that. I'm gonna get in trouble.
There's a cinnamon over there. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. But yeah, this guy
That's a
made a mint. It's a gimmick and he did this whole thing, but it could be legitimate. I mean, he sent like the actual place where it's at on the moon. There was a lunar deed. There was this whole thing. So it was wild. But he made a ton of money and it stuck. So it's wild. So
interesting.
let me ask you this. What is it? I mean, you're in an ever-evolving world. I mean, this modern world with AI and everything that's happening is moving so fast and you have to stay on top of it. What gets you up every day to evolve not only as a business owner and entrepreneur, but staying on top of this fast world, taking care of your soul? What is that for you every day?
I have to have a mixture of exercise, reading, and just quiet thinking time in my life. So that's critical. I get energized by people and conversations like these. So that brings me energy for sure.
Yeah,
But the reading, the contemplative side of things, and the writing piece of what I do, that provides the inspiration, the spark, and it's things that I feel like I have to get out of myself in some ways. And so when it flows, I want to be able to be in front of a keyboard and to get something written. And as far as the movement around AI, it is we've had conversations, early on when it first dropped 2 years ago. It was like, oh shit, we let that out of the bag, right? We let it out, and now it's out, and now we're going to have to deal with it. Now we're going to have to figure out what this thing is going to be. And I've probably swayed so much on the emotional spectrum from, either anger, excitement to, fear to excitement and all kinds of other emotions and then excitement. And now it's leveled. It's pretty, stable. We started to develop tools ourselves that use AI to audit packages, so to see how far they, how well they'll sell through at retail. We've got a tool that's going to audit brands to figure out the value of brands in a more efficient manner. So we're like, this is a great thing. This is an amazing thing that we've. It's going to advance humanity. It's going to do amazing things for us. But there still is going to be a lot of social friction, and there needs to be a little social friction because it moves at such a pace. There's going to be naturally. I think there's also going to be an energy consumption piece of friction, right? It's not going to have enough. It's going to increase costs. It's going to cause all the kinds of other issues. But I find it to be now just a very, very fascinating thing that you kind of bring into your life. It also is going to require us to be more discerning as human beings. And we're going to need to be able to see between fake and real. And it's going to get harder and harder every day to know what is AI and what is not. Because people are like, well, the writing is just horrible. Well, if you teach it, it can write in a way that is scary good.
I know.
And be like, it is the audio it can create, the music it can create, the now videos that it can create. I mean, this stuff is profoundly impressive. So we got to be rather more discerning as human beings. And then also, I think there's going to be those, we're going to get to that place where we're going to, this is human created, this is AI created,
Yep.
and it's going to separate the content that, people go, that feels right. I pose this question: what if Patagonia created all their images via AI, all their outdoor images and all their video and all their stuff via AI? How would that feel to you, to an audience we have? And then one person who was from Aveda, she was appalled. She's like, I can't believe that would ever happen. And then the other person who happens to have developed something in AI and was more deep into it, she's like, I mean, if you think about the images they created, the video, it's a made up scene, right? They paused something, they created that. That's all fake
Yep.
in the traditional sense of that, right? And so this is just a variation on that idea. As much as we have this emotional problem with it, they're right.
Yeah.
It is something you have to consider. Though I still don't want to ever see Patagonia not have images from the outdoors that are
Yeah.
real. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You feel
Yeah.
right.
We're going to end up going to AI to say, is this AI or is this real? We're going to have to fact check it one
I
day.
know we are. We are. Well, there's a
Wild.
lot of things we're going to have to check in on
Yep.
AI. Does this fit my values? Should I be involved with this brand? And there's the power of it is going to be absolutely profound. So it's going to have those abilities to increase the efficacy of our decisions as human beings at the human level,
Yeah.
but also hopefully at the business level, it's going to be able to do that as well. So it's going to in itself slow humans down, but speed up our ability to consume knowledge and to learn more for sure,
Yeah.
but slow down our decision making, which I think would be a good thing,
Yeah.
overall. And these are my theories as unintended consequences, right? We're like, what's going to really happen when we do this? And we look back after the next 5, 10, or 20 years.
Yeah.
I think we'll be excited about what we did as human beings, but there's of course going to be some dark things we'll look
Yeah.
back on and be horrified by. But there's a possibility that AI will start a war at some point
Yeah.
in time
I know.
between countries, right? There's a possibility that people will more than likely see AI as a god and they will worship it like a religion.
Yeah.
It's kind of horrifying. There's just things out there that you go, oh, that's not going to be good. But also on the whole, I would hope it is something that we've invented as human beings. It's going to be a good thing.
Yeah. For sure. So let me ask you this. Of everything that you've accomplished and evolved to at this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Oh, I would say raising two amazing kids for sure.
Yeah.
I've got two freaking amazing kids and as an entrepreneur being married, the numbers are against entrepreneurs actually being married once and that's it. It's a tough stat to look at. And then also just, yeah, raising two properly balanced kids in an environment of being an entrepreneur because, they could easily, that's sad. I've never seen my dad. I don't know who my dad is.
Yeah.
He's never around. Right. So I tried to balance that as best I possibly could. Right. Because I've seen You see this in entrepreneurs of, and they've made those sacrifices. They've chosen to do that for the business and for the growth and for the wealth and for the other stuff that comes with that. And then what they have is children who absolutely hate them. And
Yeah.
I just kind of like, that's not what I want to be in, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone you work with, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
oh my goodness. Uh, well, I'm probably, yeah, there's moments because you get stuff that's from friends and family and my co-authors at times who give me this. And if at one time my co-author said, Aaron, you're overly agreeable. You're going to be the most agreeable. And it wasn't intended to be mean, but it was definitely a shot. And it was like, what do you mean I'm too agreeable? Screw you. I can be disagreeable. Like maybe I am. I am definitely more agreeable probably than the average human. I appreciate imagination. I appreciate interesting new things. I don't like the same old stuff. I don't like the world of politicians and what they try to create,
Yeah.
and how they try to create divide. I think we're more similar than different. And I think the economic engine between in media is division. Is you got to create division. You got to create clicks in order to create revenue. And I think politicians feed off that as well. And that's how they get people to get up and vote, is to be angry and, that these people are taking over the world. I just don't believe that. And so I find myself hopefully to be more humble, but yeah, definitely more agreeable, hopefully with enough wisdom that it's interesting to still be in a room with me and have a conversation. So
Yeah. I dig it. So if anyone has any questions, they want to hire you, reach out, any of the good business, where do they go?
they do a capsule.us.
Okay.
They can find us at capsule.us is our website. And also they can just search me on LinkedIn. I'm very prolific on LinkedIn, also on X, and on the other channels a little bit, but pretty much those are my big ones, is LinkedIn.
Right on. I will put those links in the show notes. This has been an absolute joy, Aaron. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for
Thank
your
you,
time.
Joe.
Best of luck. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. And I love the art. That is
Thank you.
awesome. That's been a wonderful backdrop to this entire thing. That's so freaking awesome.
Thank you.